sleep when there's a new cinematic that we can talk about, especially when it's a really good one. After the Ruination event ended, and while we were waiting for the last issue of the comic, there was only one thing that I was hoping we would get in that comic. Thresh. I mean, we did get him, but not in the way that we expected. I was really hoping we would learn what happened to Thresh, why it happened to Thresh, and what he was going to do. Now, to this very moment, we still don't really know what exactly happened to Thresh, but the context we got was really good. For those of you who missed it, yesterday Riot released a new cinematic to celebrate the fact that Thresh will be joining Wild Rift. But of course, in Wild Rift, because of the censorship, they had to humanize him. So there, Unbound Thresh is his normal skin. But of course, we didn't really have any context as to what actually happened to Thresh lore-wise. And people really started disliking him after they noticed that they just turned Thresh sexy. After all the other sexy champions, and the one who was almost sexy as well. I mean, he still kinda is. But anyway, people were fed with e-boy champions, and so what did we get? Thresh transformed into a pretty boy. Now this entire time, I was fine with what was happening to Thresh. Yes, him being sexy really didn't fit his character. But the idea behind the skin and the story was fine. We learned that Thresh was absorbing all the black mist that Viego was spewing out. And in fact, in the comic we learned that it was Thresh who pushed Viego into starting the Ruination, so that eventually Thresh would be able to control the Black Mist, and that would free him from the Shadow Isles. So the story was good. We didn't get any of that in the event, which is where the story was supposed to really happen, but at least that part was fine. The visuals is what people really didn't like, and I'm happy to say they fixed it in this cinematic. But enough talking about the skin, and let's now talk about the cinematic and the reason why people swapped their opinions and now everyone loves Thresh.
Thieving little devil.
The cinematic begins with a really creepy setup. Here we have Bort, a guy who will tell us his life story in just a moment. From the innkeeper we learn that Bort is a waiter at a pub. And as the text reveals, we are in Hegby in southern Noxus, but unfortunately we can't find this place on the map. After almost successfully serving a bowl to a man, Bort then tells us his life story, or at least, what the heck happened to his arm.
Sorry, sir. Cursed arm. Yep, picked a mage's pocket. He gave it the old zapparoo. Now it does what it wants.
So yes, simply said, he pickpocketed a mage and the mage cursed him. And now he is working in the inn, both as a waiter and an attraction.
You have to watch who you trifle with in Noxus.
Do you now?
And of course, he told that story to no one else but Thresh himself. Now here I have to mention a couple of things. First of all, his voice is somehow very similar to Swain. I have nothing against it, but if you combine it with the fact that he really looks like Swain here, I was confused for a moment. But the moment you see his iconic keys, you realize that this is Thresh. I like the fact that he still has the keys as trinkets, even though he has no use for them. And the fact that Bort is being used as an attraction is shown in the next scene, the one where everyone bullies him.
Halt! Get the dishes, you crustaceous scum! Oh, bugger!
Pardon? Bugger.
Halt! More Elnook milk! Bloody snow crab!
Sorry, sir. Double quick, ma'am. Pardon. Dodgy arm. Sorry, cursed hand.
Also notice that the innkeeper called out for Elnook milk. Of course, the Elnooks are the animals from Freljord. Anyone who has played Legends of Runeterra knows about them. But it makes sense why people in Noxus would be ordering Elnook milk, because Noxus is invading the Freljord. They are partially in the region already. So of course they would be importing that milk further into their empire. But then we have this curious shot of Thresh. Here he is clearly looking at how everyone is bullying Bort. But that is a little bit suspicious. Because usually Thresh wouldn't care about who's bullying who. Thresh just enjoyed the torment. So here it is kinda interesting to see that even though Thresh is still pretty much a villain, he almost has a tiny bit of a good side to him. Which is really cool, because this indirectly points at the fact that Thresh is a little bit more human now. I'm pretty sure this is intended.
Would you like a warm bowl, sir?
No, thank you, Bort. I'm saving my appetite.
Thresh pointing out the fact that he's saving his appetite is pointing to the fact that he's gonna consume their souls. And then he pulls out this very interesting coin. Even though they are in Noxus, I highly doubt that this is Noxian. On one side it has a face, and on the other it has a skull. And after looking at the markings, especially on the skull's forehead, you know, the circles and triangles carved into it, this very much looks like a coin from the Blessed Isles. Which makes sense, that's where Thresh is from. But Bort likely doesn't realize how ancient this coin actually is. According to the Runeterran timeline, this one is more than 1,000 years old.
For your service. Go on. Put it to pocket before someone else does.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I wonder if this scene is pointing at the fact that Bort just never gets tipped, so he is just surprised by that, or if he's actually surprised by the coin. Once again, this doesn't seem to be Noxian, so what he's holding in his hand right now is probably an ancient relic.
Bort! Well, I'd put it toward your debt if I didn't need to cover all the broken plates of stupidity.
Because you can hear the innkeeper stumble for a bit, you know that he's making the stuff up. He's not really gonna put it towards his debt, he's just gonna pocket it himself. And then we get to tired Bort, who's just trying to clean the place up.
Bugger!
And then we get this beautiful shot. I honestly don't know if I talked about this in a video, I know I mentioned it on stream. But during the time when everyone was mad that Thresh was turned into a sexy boy, I had a proposition. I wanted Riot to give Thresh a toggle. If people don't like his human form, just give him a Camavorian helmet. Just like what Viego has when he's stealthed. That way you would hide the fact that Thresh is human and you would make Thresh badass. So Riot did that. They gave him the helm here. This is exactly what I wanted. Can we have this in the game as well, please? Like really, I don't know how much work that would be, but doing this to Thresh would be absolutely amazing. This is a guaranteed win, Riot. Please do it. Anyway, Thresh then just goes on a happy little rampage.
Going somewhere? Bort, my friend. I was a prisoner too.
You know, the Shadow pointing out that Thresh is still a monster.
Longer than you could imagine. A phantom, chained to the Shadow Isles. But no one escapes. I forgot how squishy they are. I'm free now, to do as I wish.
And finally here Thresh points out why he's even called Unbound Thresh. After consuming all the black mist that was pouring out of Viego's heart, he can now control the mist, and he can now travel wherever he wants. So finally, after thousands of years, he is now free from his shackles.
Move, Bort!
Oh no!
Here he is, friend Bort. The hand at your tether.
Wait! We're friends! Who else would take you in? A little ribbing between friends. Just me and old Bort having a laugh. Right, Bort? Right?
Little ribbing between friends, remember that.
Someone gives and someone gets. There are two sides to every transaction. Your curse is his
profit.
And this is where the cinematic confirms that Bort is really just being used as an attraction. The innkeeper is using the fact that Bort is cursed to get in more customers that would bully him. It's just a tiny little detail, but I love how Bort is still obedient. He still adds "sir" after every sentence.
Your curse is his
profit, sir.
Would you like to be free, Bort? Never again to feel the sting of your accursed deformity?
You can do this.
My dear Bort, there is life, there is death, and there is me.
This is the shot that everyone absolutely loves. This shows us that Unbound Thresh has character, and I love it. Though again, it is curious to see that Thresh is now sympathetic towards other people. It is obvious he is helping Bort because he was bullied. And once again, I guess if that means that Thresh is a bit more human now. That is the side effect of him finally being able to leave the Shadow Isles. And of course we can't forget about the fact that the reason why he's talking about himself not being life or death is because the Black Mist is something in between. The mist itself technically kills people, but the magic from the blessed waters of the Blessed Isles makes it so that it can never truly kill anyone. That's what Thresh is now. As the master of the Black Mist, he can kill people without technically killing them. Now here I quickly need to point out that if there is one thing that we still don't know about Thresh, it's what is the crystal? We still don't know where he got it and what does it do. I understand that because the skin needs to be different, they just replace the lantern with a crystal, but we're talking about lore here. I still want to know what it is.
Go mind the whip, just a little ribbing between friends.
Little ribbing between friends, that's where it came back. And of course here we can see Bord getting some payback. He is free from his curse, and he gets to whip the people who bullied him. I mean, Thresh won in the end, he did enslave their souls, but I guess Thresh needed someone to drive him around, and so he just used Bord for that. Maybe that's the reason why he felt sympathetic towards Bord. He was just going to use him. And then we get the last shot, which confused some people. Since the cinematic was confirmed to be in the southern Noxus, some people may be wondering, why do we see the Immortal Bastion in the background? Well, first of all, the Immortal Bastion has 3 pillars. This structure only has 2. And also, the Immortal Bastion would be 8 times as big. I really don't think people should underestimate Mordekaiser's creation. The Immortal Bastion is inhumanly big. When you have a look at it, you should never believe that humans would be ever able to build that. It should feel like something that was built by the gods themselves. That's what Mordekaiser was aiming for. And thankfully, that was confirmed by Riot as well. What we can see here in the background is not the Immortal Bastion. This would be far too small. So right now, we theoretically have no idea where Thresh is going. But we know that he is in Noxus. Now, I think everyone can agree on the fact that this cinematic was absolutely amazing. But let's talk about what this means for Thresh. First of all, the event told us nothing about Thresh. Compared to this, the amount of lore he got here is insane. And after this cinematic, I can tell you right now, people want more Thresh lore. People instantly swapped from hating him into loving him that much. So I'm glad to see that Riot actually justified Unbound Thresh. But more importantly, there is the other thing that I want to talk about. He is now in Noxus. For me, there's only one obvious reason why he would be here specifically. Besides the fact that he's just happy to travel around finally. I think Riot is setting Thresh for something bigger. Now, I know we were all burned by big lore events, but in Noxus there are 2 things which Riot can do with Thresh. They can set him up for Mordekaiser somehow, maybe there will be a battle of the kings of the damned, but in my opinion, the cooler way to deal with Thresh would be to make him join the Black Rose. He would be an excellent member right besides LeBlanc and Vladimir. Now you certainly can't find a more powerful being handling dark magic. He would fit so well. And if Riot goes for this, I'll be honestly happy. It is a really good way to put Thresh into a new place. But unfortunately, that's just speculations. As of right now, we really don't know what Thresh will be doing on Runeterra. We just know that he turned from a really sexy guy into a really cool guy that is not so sexy anymore. In my opinion, Riot did manage to redeem Unbound Thresh. Somehow, Unbound Thresh is now way cooler than everything else that happened during the ruination, even though technically, the Unbound Thresh was the outcome of the ruination. But there is still one more thing that Riot needs to do. Besides giving us a story on the universe that would give us one canon storyline that happened during this event, they should also change Thresh's splash art. Just make him a tiny bit more crazy, please. People really like this, they really don't like that.